Welcome to this explainer. Looking at today's incredibly fragmented shipping landscape, with restricted origins and constantly shifting carrier alliances, we found some absolutely fascinating strategies for mastering complex multi-leg container moves. We're talking specifically about what logistics looks like in 2026. If you're managing a supply chain right now, understanding these concepts is literally essential. So let's just dive right in.
Right off the bat, this quote from the source material really caught our attention because it challenges a massive assumption we almost all hold. Think about it. The old school way was you stuff a box at the origin, seal it tight, and honestly, you don't think about it again until it hits the final destination. But the data shows us something totally different today. Sometimes, the absolute best strategic move you can make is to deliberately intercept that shipment halfway across the world. Recognizing this reality, that is step one to protecting your margins.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. The reality of cross-stuffing. 2. Clearing up the confusion. 3. Why experienced traders use it. 4. The step-by-step process. 5. Calculating the real costs. And finally, 6. Managing risks and strategy.
All right, moving into part one, the reality of cross-stuffing as a strategic necessity.
So what is it exactly? Well, cross-stuffing is literally the process of physically unloading your cargo from one container and reloading it into a brand new one, right at an intermediate port. Now, this deliberate opening of the container midway through transit doesn't just happen anywhere. It requires massive, powerful logistics hubs. Think places like Jebel Ali, Port of Sohar, or Singapore. And that's because these hubs offer specialized infrastructure, free trade zones, and bonded warehousing. You are literally taking the goods out of container A and securing them into container B. And instead of looking at this as a breakdown in your chain, you really need to view it as deliberate precision surgery to totally optimize your routing.
Okay, section 2, clearing up the confusion, cross-stuffing versus transshipment.
We absolutely have to clear up these two terms, because mixing them up can seriously mess with your risk profile. The biggest difference? With transshipment, you're just moving the sealed, locked box from one ship to another. But cross-stuffing, you're actually opening the box and physically moving the goods inside. And because you're unsealing that container, your risk of damage instantly goes up. But maybe even more importantly, your paperwork completely changes. You transition from using the same bill of lading to needing a new or switch bill of lading. That document shift is a massive change in liability, and you've got to be fully prepared for it.
Let's jump into section 3, why experienced traders use it and the strategic advantages.
You can really think of this strategy like a logistical Swiss Army knife. It just gives you so much commercial flexibility. For example, maybe a primary ocean carrier gives you an amazing rate to Dubai, but their onward leg to East Africa is just way too expensive. Well, by cross-stuffing, you simply switch your cargo to a regional specialist for that final leg. Or think about consolidation. Say you've got 3 different suppliers sending less than container loads. You can merge them all into one full container load at a mid-transit hub, which absolutely slashes your per-unit freight costs. And if you're navigating restricted origins, using a switch bill of lading basically lets you act like a commercial chameleon, giving you total control over how your shipment is perceived globally. To really put this into perspective, there's a wild scenario from the source material. Imagine the pure panic of having a super time-sensitive bulk chemical shipment suddenly hit by a blank sailing. Basically, the ship it was supposed to take is just outright canceled. Normally, you'd leave the cargo sitting at the port and eat a brutal 3-week delay. But here, the logistics team stepped in. They routed the cargo through an intermediate hub, cross-stuffed the chemicals into new containers, and jumped onto a totally different carrier. They didn't just avoid the 3-week delay, they actually cut the total freight cost by 12%. No way, right? That is the true power of this strategy when you execute it well. Okay, moving to section 4, the step-by-step process and operations on the ground.
So let's step down onto the terminal floor and look at exactly how this plays out. The whole thing generally takes about 1 to 3 days in an efficient hub. It kicks off with arrival and customs coordination, followed by carefully destuffing that original container. But listen, I really want to highlight step 3 here. This is your absolute critical line of defense. You have got to count, photograph, and inspect for damage right here before the cargo changes hands. Any weird discrepancies need to be documented immediately. Then the goods are stuffed into the new outbound box, the paperwork is updated with the new container numbers, and boom, it's sealed and released to the outbound carrier.
Now, operating in 2026 brings up a very modern problem highlighted in the research, the dreaded data blackout. You absolutely must instruct your warehouse team on the ground to physically grab your GPS, temperature, or humidity trackers from the old box and put them into the new one. Plus, you have to update your digital platform to show a cross-stuffing event.
If you skip this, your buyer is going to log into their portal, see the original container officially marked as returned to empty depot, and absolutely panic thinking the whole shipment got lost or stolen. Section 5. Calculating the real costs and budgeting for reality.
We have to be brutally honest here. Mid-transit interventions definitely aren't free. You got a budget for the physical warehouse labor. The folks with hard hats and forklifts actually doing the heavy lifting. Then add in terminal handling charges, daily temporary storage fees, and paying those essential third-party surveyors at step 3. And here's a sneaky cost that catches people off guard: empty container repositioning. Once you empty that first box, you still have to pay trucking surcharges to send it back to the original carrier's local depot. Those line items stack up fast.
So when you tally all that up, you're looking at a true added cost of roughly $1,200 to $3,500 per container. Now you might be thinking, ouch, why would anyone pay that? Well, because the math still works out beautifully. Aside from grabbing cheaper secondary freight rates, traders use this as an emergency release valve for demurrage and detention. Those demurrage fees compound daily when a container just sits at a port. Taking the cargo out of a delayed box and putting it into a neutral warehouse completely stops that aggressive penalty clock. That alone can easily save you tens of thousands of dollars, making that $3,500 fee look like an absolute bargain.
Moving to our final section, number 6, managing risks and strategy to protect your cargo.
Right. So because you're introducing extra handling, the risk of dropping or damaging your goods naturally goes up. The key takeaway here, you must explicitly talk to your insurer to make absolutely sure you have uninterrupted warehouse-to-warehouse coverage during this whole transition. And definitely use independent surveyors. They give you indisputable proof of your cargo's condition. Also, looking at scheduling, be sure to build a 5 to 7 day buffer in your timeline just in case the ships don't perfectly align. Oh, and a quick practical tip, if you're moving super fragile electronics or certain perishables without a specialized cold chain facility, honestly, it's usually better to just skip cross-stuffing entirely.
The source material makes this point super clear. In this whole process, the bill of lading is absolutely king. Since you're swapping the container, your paperwork has to be completely flawless. You need to verify early on that your sales contracts and letters of credit actually allow for intermediate handling. You'll have to formally surrender the original master bill of lading and get a new switch bill of lading issued with the new container numbers and seals. If this crowning document has even a single typo, Destination Customs will stop your shipment dead in its tracks.
The difference between good and great in global trade really comes down to mastering the complex details that everyone else just overlooks. And cross-stuffing is one of those incredibly powerful levers. As we were reviewing these strategies, we saw that tools like platform.tentify.net are fantastic for seamlessly modeling these multi-leg shipments and figuring out total landed costs. So think about your own supply chain lanes right now. What's one routing challenge you're currently dealing with where opening the box mid-transit might actually become your biggest competitive advantage?